Thanks. So my name is Jocelyn Wyatt. Thank you so much for having us, Bank and Terre, and for all of you for being here. I wanted to just give a quick introduction to IDEO and then really talk about how design and design thinking is a way to encourage innovation. So what are the principles of this that all of us can use in terms of helping us think about coming up with innovative approaches on any of our programs or initiatives? And then I wanted to finish up with why IDEO is doing this social impact work, and then also just to preempt the question about things that we still have to learn, talk about some of the things that I think we haven't yet figured out. So IDEO is an innovation and design consulting firm. We started about 30 years ago, and our history is really in product design and engineering. We started off doing a lot of work with design of technology, so starting with the first mouse for Microsoft and the first laptop computer, moved into things like the Palm 5, and then started to expand the definition of what design was and start to apply design not just to tangible objects and products, but to apply it to services, things like the Bank of America's Keep the Change Savings Program, and applied it to spaces. So Marriott hotels, we've designed a number of their hotel rooms and lobbies and services that they offer. And then more recently have started to expand definition of design from not just products into services and spaces, but then also into different programs and other areas of impact. So we've done a lot of work with the government recently. We redesigned security checkpoints for TSA and have done work with the Department of Energy around how to encourage behavior change to reduce energy consumption. Done work with the CDC about how to encourage children to eat vegetables. And then the work that I'm leading at IDEO is our social impact work. So that's work with social sector organizations, work with foundations, work in emerging markets, and some of that is product design, some of it is service design, and some of it is looking at these more systemic or behavior change questions. So unlike some other corporations that have separate foundations, IDEO social impact work is embedded in the work that we do. So there's a very small team of us within IDEO that are leading the charge in terms of building the social impact domain, but we're pulling resources from throughout the company, and people in our design community, the consultants who are working on corporate projects, are also working on many of these social impact projects. IDEO has about 550 people in 8 offices around the world, and this just shows you a sense of where our hubs are. So I wanted to talk about how design thinking sparks social innovation and just give you a few principles about how design is really a way to solve problems. And I actually am not a designer. I came to IDEO about 2 years ago and have learned about design during that time. So some of the things that really resonated with me in terms of how to apply this methodology or this problem-solving technique to different social sector problems. These are 5 of the principles that I think are most relevant to addressing some of the challenges that we're all talking about here. So the first one is that design and design thinking puts people first. This is a photo from a project that we did with Vision Spring in India. And the first thing that we did with the Vision Spring team was to actually go out into the villages of India and to talk to children. The project was about enhancing access to eye care for children in rural India. And so, well, I think the approach, what Vision Spring was sort of thinking about doing first was to talk to some experts, so to talk to the eye doctors or to talk to donors that have done work with children's eye care. And what we really encouraged them to do is to shift to going out to the field and talking to children first and doing observations with children to understand what some of their fears were. And some of the things that we found were that children were really reluctant to share their problems with their teachers or with their parents, but they were very comfortable sharing their problems with other children. Found that children felt uncomfortable in the presence of adults, especially in issues related to healthcare, but felt really comfortable if they had a buddy with them or one of their friends along with them. And we found out that children really liked to pretend to be adults. So actually one of the solutions that we came up with was a way for children to actually coach each other through the eye exams so that they didn't sit down and immediately start crying once they were under pressure and getting their eyes examined, which is what they were doing when we first started the program. So by putting people first and understanding their behaviors and wants and needs, we're really able to design programs that are suitable for people. The second piece of design thinking that I think is really applicable to addressing social challenges is that design starts small and it starts now. So with a systemic problem like access to drinking water, where a billion people in the world don't have access to clean drinking water, this is such an enormous challenge, and it's really easy to say, you know, I have no idea how we could start, leave it to someone else, or let's make policy changes and we'll hope that someone else can address it in that way. I think what design does is it breaks down the problem and it says there are many aspects of the journey of water, from the treatment of water to the transportation and delivery services to the consumption in the home. And let's just pick one piece of that journey that we can focus on and then design solutions for that. So for a project that we're undertaking now with Acumen Fund and Gates Foundation, we're looking at specifically the transportation and storage of drinking water. And so this is a delivery truck of Water Health Internationals in India. And the idea is that if we can find ways to actually deliver water to people's doorsteps, that we could avoid contamination that happens typically on that journey. The third piece is that design balances the ecosystem. So one of the really important things that happens in the social sector and what we're talking about with these big systemic challenges is that there's so many players and that the players need to be interwoven. And so any solution needs to address the fact that you do need to bring together many, many players. So one example is a project that we did with Shimano. Shimano is a manufacturer of bike components. And so with them, we were looking to design a bicycle for people that were not currently riding bicycles. And so this was a bike that we designed that has internal gear shifting and is very simple. It has back pedal brakes, and it's also a cruiser, so it's really fun and comfortable to ride. And the idea here was that we needed to not just design for Shimano, but that we also needed to design for the bike shops and for the customers and for the actual bike manufacturers who are going to brand and then sell this new line of bikes. So design thinking experiments to learn. So we have a culture of prototyping, which basically means that we make small investments in very early prototypes and bring them out into the field to get feedback on them really early on. So one way that we do this is we can prototype products, certainly, where we actually build a product and build a very rough prototype of a product and then get people's feedback on it. But we can also prototype services or businesses or programs. So this is work that we did in northern Ghana, where we were working with a corporation that was looking to enter emerging markets in socially responsible ways. So we actually set up a mock shop at a market, and we asked this woman if she could actually try selling some of the products that this company made as a way for us to play around with pricing and branding and package size, and just to get a sense of what people would really want to buy. Because what we were finding is we were going to people and saying, oh, do you like this lotion or this soap? And they'd say, yes, of course, we love it. Would you buy it? Yes, of course, we'd buy it. Would you pay, twice as much for it than the local products? Yes, obviously we would. And then once you actually put it out there in the market and say, will you actually now buy this with your actual money? They say no. And so the idea of prototyping to really understand people's behaviors and test what it is that they're saying is what really leads to good design that actually speaks to the needs of people. And then the fifth principle is that design thrives in constraints. So what is the most challenging question to any designer is, how might you better people's lives in Eastern Kenya? designers would say, I have no idea, that's too wide open, I don't know how to deal with that question. What's a much easier question for designers to deal with is when it's a very constrained design challenge. So we did work with Kickstart, and Kickstart has been making the moneymaker pump for years, and they've been manufacturing that in East Africa. They've recently made a move to outsource the manufacturing to China so that they could bring down the cost of production and then pass on some of those savings to the farmers. And so what they required was actually a redesign of the moneymaker pump so that it could be manufactured in China and shipped to East Africa in a more cost-effective way. And so with that type of very constrained design challenge in that it has to be manufactured by a certain manufacturer in China, so it needs to fit in with their capabilities, it has to be shipped, and it has to be sturdy and last for 5 years, it has to be made for less than $100, and it has to be locally repairable. With that set of design constraints, design really thrives. And on many of these social challenges that we're talking about, especially in emerging markets, there's so many constraints out there that this is why design can really succeed in addressing some of these questions. So then I wanted to move into why does IDEO do social impact work? And I hope that some of these points can actually be applicable to other corporations as they think about engaging in this type of work and apply this not just to other design or consulting firms, but to private sector firms in general. So we actually were asked this question and asked to figure out this question by Maria Blair and Rockefeller Foundation about a year ago and put together this guidebook for how a design firm like IDEO could engage in social impact work, and then also how social sector organizations could work with design firms. So what are the learnings on both sides there? And one of the things that we explored by doing that work was what are some new interesting business models that we can think about to actually allow us to scale our offering beyond just working with 1 or 2 foundations a year doing a few projects. So the first reason we came up with was why we want to engage in this work is that we want to have impact in the world. So this is IDEO's mission. Our leadership truly does care about this. And so this was the primary driver for doing the social impact work. And we're actually seeing that impact now. It took us several years to actually see examples of true impact in the world. For a while, we had many projects that were great on the shelf, but that they actually weren't being implemented. And now I think we're finally seeing that the implementation is taking place, which is really rewarding to us. So the first picture in the upper left is a picture of Vision Spring. So this was actually prototypes that they ran after our work with them, where they have children screening children as a way to make those kids feel more comfortable during the eye exams. Next is a picture of a woman who is doing a water delivery service outside of Bangalore in the slums. And this woman is delivering clean drinking water to members of her community, and so IDEO's involvement in this was to design not just that cart that you see, but also the business model and the new social enterprise that this organization is rolling out. We have a picture from Ormondale Elementary School where we designed an innovation curriculum for the teachers and the students. So what you're seeing now is that students are actually doing experiential learning, and the curriculum that we helped develop is actually in place in that school. Then the fourth is a picture of a camera, and one of the things that we did in the past year was to develop a human-centered design toolkit where we actually laid out the process for design and shared that with social sector organizations. And so that toolkit was available open source up on our website for anyone that wanted to follow the design process to address any of their design challenges. And so we had no idea who was going to pick this up, but actually a student who wrote to me recently and said that she was doing a project in Rwanda for a semester, and that she had found the toolkit and she had used it, and she sent me a slideshow of her using this toolkit. So we had had no connection with this woman, but she somehow stumbled upon it. And one of the things that she sent me was the photo of this camera. And what's really cool about this is that one of the activities that we talked about in the Human-Centered Design Toolkit, we laid out a number of research activities for people to do to really understand their users. And one of them was an activity around self-documentation. And we had never really found a good way to do self-documentation, so we were lending people digital cameras, and then we were coming back the next day and picking them up, and it seemed like it was working, certainly, but there were a lot of logistical challenges with what we were doing. And it was also pretty difficult to teach people how to use these digital cameras who had never used any kind of technology like that in the past. So this woman sent me this photo, and what she had done was she took a disposable camera and she printed out on the back of it what each photo should be. So she said things like, you know, this is where I eat my dinner every day. This is how I cook my meal. This is where I go shopping. And so then she instructed the people to actually take pictures of those things and then turn the cameras into her, so that instead of her trying to observe their lives, they were just showing her what they wanted to show her about their lives. And so it was really neat to see that through this work that people were able to take up some of the methods that we had laid out there and make them their own and actually make them better. Second reason that we're doing this work is that it's good business. This is a core part of IDEO's business, and we've actually seen this grow over time. So 4 years ago, we had 2 projects in a year related to social impact, and last year we had 13 projects. So we're seeing a steady increase in this work, which is really exciting. It's a good fit with our brand. And people are really excited to hear about it. One of the things that I just found out was that on our website we have many different focus pages. We have about 12 focus pages, and social impact is one of them. I just found out that social impact is actually the most popular focus page, and it's more than twice as popular as the second most popular page. So people are clearly coming to us because they're excited about this work, which is really neat. These are tough and stimulating challenges that we're addressing, and they make us better designers. So we're seeing that, especially because of all of the constraints that are put in place, because of the complex ecosystems, and because of the very different cultural context, we actually have to get better at doing design work, and this is really keeping us sharp and making us better at all of the work that we do across our private sector clients as well. And then finally, these are the projects that designers crave. So these are the projects that people are asking for. People really want to work on these projects, and they find them really rewarding. One of the things that we found several years ago before we were doing this work was that many of our best designers were leaving the firm to go work for social sector organizations or social enterprises. And we wanted to be able to both attract the best talent and retain the best talent, and the only way to do that was really by addressing some of these types of design challenges. And then I just wanted to make 3 really quick points about things that we still need to figure out. The first one is that we need to figure out how to move design beyond the product. So we're applying design and design thinking to challenges other than product design challenges, but still what design is known for is designing the product. And so this is a really big challenge for us and something that we're continuing to struggle with. The second is that we need to continue to innovate more on our business model and to either bring costs down or spread the cost between many different players. We've done this to some extent and we've experimented a few times, but we need to be even more radical in those experimentations and do that on a broader scale. So we're really starting another round of that initiative now. And then the third is that we need to be more proactive in voicing what our theory of change is. As a consulting firm, we've been pretty reactive at listening to other people's design challenges and then doing those projects. And I think we have an opportunity to say now, these are the areas where we believe that we can have the most impact, and then actually seek funding more proactively to engage in that type of work. Thank you.